Hello and welcome back to the podcast. I'm the host, Sean Boyce. I'd like to welcome my guest to the show today, Jeff Bleacher, who is the managing partner of Ross Buehler Falk Company. Hello, Jeff. How are you? And thanks for being on the show.
Thank you for having me, Sean. It's great to be here. I'm doing well.
Excellent. Glad to hear that. And very excited to talk more about you and your firm and learn more about where you've invested in technology and otherwise. But before we do that, if you wouldn't mind, please, for our audience, give them a little bit more information about your background and how you became the managing partner of your firm.
Yes, I've been in this. I've been in this profession for about for almost 40 years. I'm actually a rare person anymore. I've been with the same firm for that entire time. Don't see that too much anymore. So I've just progressed through the managing partner. I've been a managing partner for about 20 years. So we're at the point where we're starting to work with the next generation and create the next generation of owners.
Very cool story. Thank you for sharing. And that is definitely very interesting, I would say. I know one of the things we want to kind of learn more about from you is the investments that you've made in technology and otherwise. But before we do that, can you give us a little bit more information, kind of a firm profile, talk a little bit more about kind of the size of your firm, the services that you offer, perhaps where you're located? I think that would be great for our audience to learn more.
Sure. We are a three-partner firm. We're in central Pennsylvania, Lancaster, PA. We're about 60 miles west of Philly, about a half hour east of Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. As I mentioned, we've been around for almost 40 years. We're a firm of about 20 to 25 people, depending on the season or the use of technology.
Well said.
Our services, we do have the traditional accounting firm services, audit, tax, compilation review, the assurance services. Again, we're like a number of firms trying to push more into the advisory services with our clients. We have done some training with our people internally on providing advisory services. And as you know, coming into this profession, accountants aren't usually trained to do advisory services. So we've been providing some education in that area. And we recently hired a new bookkeeping. We did not have a bookkeeping service or CAS service. So we've recently hired somebody to start with that division and grow it, a former somebody we worked with in the past. So we're really excited with that because that really goes with the advisory services, again, small business, which is, we tend to do small businesses. It depends on your definition of small businesses, but I would say 2 to 20 million in revenue is pretty much our sweet spot.
Definitely interested to learn more. Thank you for that background. Definitely interested to learn more in terms of that advisory services push. And we talked about this ourselves as well, too. But interested to learn more from you in terms of what your plans are there. What are you thinking? I know you mentioned the bookkeeping kind of element. Is that part of it as well, too? Kind of an expansion on cash practice, or are there other plans involved as well also?
Yeah, I think we traditionally, in the past, have thought of bookkeeping services, which, as we know, small businesses, there's a number of those that need that support. But I think we're trying to provide more value than that. We're looking to, whether it's, I'll say, outsource CFO services, or really help the client understand their numbers, maybe help them with the dashboards so that they can really grow their business. Too many small business owners don't have the proper information to make decisions. So the goal is to guide them with that, help them understand it, and really be able to help them grow their business is really what the goal is. And internally, we have started to do that with our team. We use the growth partnership for our marketing, and they also have an advisory service. They can come in and they train us and go through a course. We've actually joined their academy where we can send people out to learn the advisory skills training and learn the skills to be able to help clients in that area.
This is very interesting. I know there's a big push for it, and something I would love to see more practices invest in as well too is really taking this proactive advisory type relationship. I know the industry has been pushing for it for a while now, but I can definitely say from the consumer's perspective on my end, in terms of the relationships that I've had with my firms before that I've used for my services, I've always wanted more of that as well too. Is I wanted my advisors to kind of play more of a proactive role and help me in growing my business, because there's things that they know, there's skills they have I don't have, that can be really important when it comes to that practice. And it's one of those things where I don't want to necessarily just wait for them to respond to me. I want to have more of a proactive relationship where we can be more forward looking in terms of what decisions do I make and when. I've had a lot of productive conversations with my accounting advisors in the past, but they've typically been fewer and farther between. So I think it's commendable for sure to kind of want to boost that side of the business. And obviously we're seeing, a lot of positive response in the market from firms that are adding those services and taking more of that proactive approach. You'd mentioned dashboard. I'm curious to learn more about that as well too. How far have you taken those plans? Is that something that you're looking to incorporate from a technical perspective as well also? Are you using anything in your stack at the moment with that, or is that on the earlier side at the moment?
That's on the very early side. That's out there on the horizon as we kick off these services. I know there's various software out there that you can create dashboards, or I guess QuickBooks to a certain extent has some dashboards. So that's a goal that we're in initial stages of. But again, I think it's you're correct in that traditionally accountants are reactive, not proactive with their clients. And again, I think the idea there is what we're looking to do is create subscriptions or packages that include services, a smorgasbord of services, meeting with the client periodically to help them understand their numbers and take on a more proactive role. We tend to do that as an industry in the tax area, maybe to some extent with tax planning or tax advising. But you're right. The small business owner or any owner wants to understand and grow their business, and we have a wealth of knowledge that we can share. Unfortunately, coming out of school, most accountants are not trained. We're trained to be historians and be reactive, so it takes a kind of a skill set that I believe you have to learn to a certain extent, which is why we're having some training for our team.
Yeah, I like that. That certainly makes a lot of sense and matches as well. Also, I've been involved with helping firms who've wanted to do something similar like this before too, kind of build a dashboard around their client base, offering them this type of advice. It really is a significant additional value add that can really improve the relationship and the strength there as well too between you and your client base as you're offering them this kind of value. Plus, it's something to create better, more productive conversations around as more data winds up on that dashboard, right? Relevant to them, relevant to you. You're obviously, your firm's expertise can be used to interpret that information, what it might mean, strategic decision making that we might, go one way or the other based on what that information looks like. And there's quite a bit out there in terms of what we can use to build something like that nowadays more than ever, which is also making things even easier. There's Power BI type tools out there, which allow us to take advantage of a lot of off-the-shelf functionality to create really cool graphics, visuals, diagrams, different ways to kind of carve up the data and hook it up and make sure that that gets updated as well too. But then a ton of no-code tools on the market as well, also giving us the ability to kind of build something perhaps a little bit more creative in the process. So I'm excited to learn more about that. I'm going to have you back when you make more progress here.
Yeah, I think it's great. I know there's tech out there that can help you do that. But I think as accountants, it really starts with the conversation with your clients. I think you can learn. We just take the time to talk to our clients and meet with our clients and talk about their business. We can learn a lot that we can help them with. Just starting with that, even beyond the tech, just have a conversation.
Agreed. And there was something else you mentioned as part of that last response as well, too, where you're talking about creating new service offerings, creating perhaps some subscriptions and some packages, and as well. Also, it sounds like you're also looking to get more involved in, offering some like fixed price options for folks that could be cash flow positive for the firm. A lot of advantages there. Really positioning the relationship on that, delivering that successful outcome for the client, as opposed to what has been, somewhat more of a traditional arrangement in the industry in the past, which is more like focus on the output and paying for hours and things like that, which just as a minimum, I've always seen as more of a mismatch between what the clients are ultimately looking for and where, the accounting firms like yours can best offer your area of expertise to offer value to the clients.
I agree totally, Sean. I think you hit it spot on. Again, I think sometimes the the clients are hesitating to call us, maybe even if they have a question. It gets down to the old fee question, but I think that shouldn't stand in the way. I think that should all be included in a subscription or a package, and you should be able to have conversations with your client, because that's how you learn.
Awesome. I recorded another episode more recently as well, too, where we talked about this very topic. And one of the interesting elements was, as opposed to that, output type arrangement where it's just producing some form of work and then charging on per hours or however much time you put into the project, it's more, we've got the outcome that we're looking for up front, and we're establishing that right off the bat, which should get the client more excited. But then it also rewards the firm for being more efficient from that point moving forward. Okay, how successfully and quickly and efficiently can we deliver that successful outcome with the client, which is, gives us the opportunity to start piling up the wins, building on those successful, strong relationships, and repeating the process as well also. So it sounds like a bit of an exciting kind of transformation, or at least a new area to kind of invest in for the firm.
Yes, we are excited.
Awesome.
We don't want to be the traditional accounting firm.
I love it. Well, I can tell that you're making the right type of investments. You're innovating in ways that are new and unique, but sounds like it's expected to generate some exciting results. So definitely interested to kind of learn more there. I know another area we wanted to explore as well, too, is to talk more about where you have made investments previously, in particular as it pertains to the kind of the tech stack, as it's often referred to, or the suite of tools that you guys use at your firm. I'd be curious to learn more from you in terms of what type of projects you have, in your opinion, either completed successfully in terms of some transformation or some digital transformation from some older systems to some newer systems or newer tech that you've implemented more recently and had success with. And then we'll talk about anything else that you either have underway at the moment or what your future plans look like.
Sure. I'm always excited about technology. Not just technology for technology's sake, but as you're well aware, capacity is an issue for our industry. Finding individuals can be a challenge today. And I think one of the ways that you offset that is becoming more efficient and using technology to become more efficient. There's been such a transformation that it's hard to keep up with all of the changes occurring out there. Internally, what we have done in the past, a couple items in the past year, is really a portal, but also a communication tool that we use with our clients. We traditionally had a portal that we used that clients could transfer documents back and forth, and it was used very well, especially on the assurance side. But we also felt we needed to, again, the technology hadn't changed for a number of years, so it was time to look for something different. So we invested in a product called Lisio, and basically it's a portal system. It's a cloud-based portal. However, it's really a communication tool. You can write notes to the client in Lisio and attach a file to it. You can actually, I've had communications back and forth with the client. Number one, it's not in your email, so it doesn't, we all get inundated with emails. So you have to keep another software open on your screen, but and you get a notification when something comes. But it's actually a way to communicate. What's really nice about that's where our clients, we then send the final tax return. So they sign using DocuSign all the tax returns. We are sending engagement letters that way for even the test services where they can assign it. So what's really nice is we've all had in the past where we're waiting for information from a client. So, and we have to keep maybe contacting the client. What this is nice is if you send them a message through Lisio, they get a notification. You can set the number of days. They get another notification that awesome. There's something out there that we want. There's also an app available, so you can download it onto your tablet or your phone, and the notification shows right on your phone. So I found that useful. First year, we've had good success. Our team really likes it. They actually use it internally. Instead of sending each other emails, they actually use it internally so that we get a task. We sign tasks, and then if you don't do it, you get an alert. So you don't have your inbox inundated. So that has working well. So our team has really picked up on it. We found our clients, I think through roughly the first year, no, well, not even a year. I guess we started in October. Our usage with clients is equal or exceeded what it was with the portal. So I think that's a pretty success that we could get that percentage. We actually, I believe, the last I saw, have like 26% of our clients are using the app. So
Wow.
yeah, that was really good because we can track that, or Liscio tracks that for us. So again, it's a way to exchange documents securely with the client, but it's really more of a communication tool. You can use it for communication, and that's the key. Continual notifications, continually in touch with the client, sharing information. That's really the key. It's not just sharing documents.
I think there's a really important distinction that you made there. Is it's because oftentimes when people are thinking about tools and resources and new tech, they just think of it to, it's a box to check, or it's an inevitable evolution, or whatever that may be. But what you're really describing is the experience that it enables, right? And it's improved communication, right? We're not just talking about workflow efficiency. We're not just talking about additional features and functionality. We're talking about improved communication, right? Which arguably would be worth the investment at almost any extent when we're talking about improving communication with our clients. And you even mentioned your internal team members, which I would say that's one of those, interesting developments, which I think gives a strong vote of confidence for the fact that the team sees significant value in the tool as well, too. You probably don't even have to ask if you're seeing them using the tool internally, or for use cases that they're figuring out how to make improvements elsewhere as well, too. Say you've successfully enabled your team with, an improved tool, and then evaluated the results and been able to observe where they've even been able to figure out how we can, not just make improvements with what probably was the primary objective, but elsewhere as well.
Yes, and it's interesting, the internal piece. That was not really the initial what the thrust was, but as we got into it and realized you can set up tasks for other internal projects, that was really a nice feature cool that my team really jumped on, and they really liked that piece of it. So
nice. How has talk to me about any form of like integrations with other tools that you guys are using. I know you mentioned DocuSign and things like that. Has Liscio had, the ability to kind of integrate elsewhere where you've wanted it to? And if so, what does that look like? Or do you have future goals to kind of try to integrate it more so into any other workflow or tools that you're using?
Yeah, I should also mention, this is not really an integration, but what's really nice is that the entire list, is anything that's in there can be seen by anybody in the firm.
Nice.
So if I'm sending information to a client and requesting something back, that task sits there for everybody. So if I'm not here, somebody can see it. What's really nice is what we do is we had our admin team this year go through, and they sorted everything out. It took that off the professional team. They went through and downloaded documents that came in from clients. They responded to it. They took that off of our shoulders because they could see everything in the whole firm. So as long as you were consistent using that and not email, it was a way to, I don't want to say integrate, but it was a way that the admin team could help the professional team get documents or obtain information from a client, which is really nice. And it's very downloadable into our work paper software. You can move it right into it integrates with it's very downloadable into, we use Thomson Reuters work papers. It's very downloadable into that or into the file cabinet. And our admin could do it for us. And then we got a task that was moved. So that made our lives so much easier.
Very cool. I love the visibility element that you mentioned, right? You can have, I would argue that enables you to have more of the successful outcome of consistency to the client experience, right? Where one client reaches out and makes contact with someone at your firm, and that person's unavailable for whatever reason, vacation or otherwise. They don't need to reestablish communication or have the same conversation over again, which the data and the statistics really show us that that's among some of the most frustrating in terms of customer service and experience that clients have with firms, and really any company. They kind of get they get round robined over and over again when they're trying to establish form of communication. But the tool that you're using now, as you described it, enables you to have the experience where everyone can see what the most recent or what all of the touch points are, so they know the history, right? And they can kind of go there first, which also helps promote and encourage folks to use the tool kind of the way that they should, because they get the value out of it that way as well too. Is like best not to take that communication offline or away from that tool at this point, because we're going to lose that value, right? So a lot of built-in internal motivators to help make sure that that experience still remains optimal.
Absolutely.
Great example. It sounds like it's been a pretty significant improvement for the firm, which is always exciting, right? And like you said, it's not technology for technology's sake. It's, how can we improve and where can we find something that can help us enable these successful outcomes and move everything forward from here. So glad to hear that one's working out. I believe there's a couple of other tools we've talked about as well too, including some that you've done some experimentation with regard to like AI and artificial intelligence and some data analytics and stuff like that. Do you want to talk about that a little bit, or any of the other tools that you guys are using at your firm?
Yeah, sure. That in the past year, in our processes for our financial statements in our assurance area, one of the tasks that has traditionally been done is that a professional team member reviews the make sure that the balance sheet looks okay. The footnotes agree to if there's a footnote for debt, does it agree to the balance sheet? And it's more of a mechanical or detailed review of that. And again, what the idea is that how can I free up our team to do higher level services for the client, not I'll say the mundane, because if you're doing that all the time, you're going to get bored. Sure. We've brought interns in to do that in the past, which they did higher level information this year, which was really great. So we were able to hire them because we were not sending them to do scanning or detail of the financial statements. They actually got to do returns. So that got us a wonderful intern this year who we've hired. But the idea is we went to a product through Sentient Systems. This product is that when our financial statement was done, we sent them a PDF, and they used artificial intelligence. So they would actually compare to make sure that the balance sheet, the assets equaled the liabilities and equity. If there was a footnote for debt, they made sure that it agreed to the, and they, if it was a corporation, in one place we had written partnerships, it would catch that. So it would use artificial intelligence to make sure that the presentation was good, the cross references were fine, and since it was artificial intelligence, it started off with understanding the way we present financial statements, and it got better at it as it went along, as it began to understand how we presented. So that saved my professional team hundreds of hours probably. Wow. In busy season, and I think we got a great product. I think early on, the team was a little bit skeptical at first, and it turns out they loved it. We send every financial there, and we know we're going to get it back, and
awesome.
It's going to be in great shape, and it's really a super product. And again, it takes that mundane work off the team and allows them to do higher level services, or as we discussed before, try to become more advisory, which is the goal.
Excellent point. Sounds like it's been a great experience thus far. I know you mentioned saving hundreds of hours, especially during busy season. That's certainly music to my ears. I imagine that made you guys pretty happy as well, too. Getting that kind of mundane routine, I call it the boring busy work, right? Getting that boring busy work out of the hands of the team and allowing them to focus in an area where they're able to make a greater impact, which is what they want to do, which is what the clients want to do, which is what you want your team to do, right? Everything winds up lining up pretty well. So it sounds like this has been a great experience thus far, and certainly makes the whole process of balancing assets and liabilities and owned equity a little bit easier. Right?
Yeah.
Simple formula, but you get lost in the weeds there a little bit. So it's nice to have some tech help. I wanted to ask you about a point that you mentioned, which I think is a really important one. And you mentioned that there was kind of perhaps maybe like a healthy amount of like skepticism initially when you were thinking about leveraging a tool like this, which sounds a little bit more progressive, a little bit more advanced. How did you get over that with your team? How did you get through that? What advice would you have for other firms that are thinking about experimenting in these ways as well too, and hoping for the successful outcome that you've had thus far? How did you communicate with your team effectively and address their concerns when it came to something like that, and give your firm the best chance to reach that successful outcome, which obviously you've made it to?
When we came across this product, it seemed very interesting to me. So we had some of our seniors sit in a demo or an online demo to see what it could do. And one seemed to have particular interest and thought it was really cool. So what I did is I guess he kind of became the champion, and he was the center point for the product. So he helped spread the word and help get everybody else on board. Sometimes it's better if you get a champion on the team to do it rather than coming from the partners.
Well said.
That seemed to work very well to answer their questions once they saw it work. When they started to quite frankly, find some errors that were not major, but there maybe was an error in a prior year financial statement that went out, and this caught it. Then once they start seeing the power of it, and then early on, they would find what they called errors, the software, but it really wasn't, because it was the artificial intelligence. It was getting to understand our product. So when it got to as we moved along, those errors went away, and our team started to say, "Hey, this is really valuable." We can, and they turned it around in like a day at the most.
Wow.
So that was another great item that they could turn it around very quickly. So I have to give them credit. But my advice is find somebody on the team or find a champion. If you don't have that, especially if it's not at the partner level, find somebody else and that's what we did with Licio. We had an admin person who Katrina just grabbed a hold of it, and she just made it happen with clients and with the team. She's the one that introduced the internal tasks. I think that's the key. Find somebody that's not at the partner level. The partners may have some skepticism. I think you and I talked about that before, but once they see it in action and knows what it can do, it tends to melt away that anxiety or is this going to work?
Well said. Yeah, those are some excellent advice, great tips as well too. Like you said, at the partnership level, once you're able to kind of see what it's capable of and understand the value, that's a big part of it, right? So seeing is believing, very much so. I love the idea of having the internal champion as well too. So someone who's not necessarily at the partnership level, but going around answering questions, helping people understand what this is, right? Eliminating any of that confusion or addressing the skepticism in a healthy way as well too, because the questions are, warranted or welcome, obviously, but it's addressing them in the right way is really important. And then, like you said, whenever you're trying to push for any kind of change, it's a lot easier if someone is pulling at the same time as you are pushing, right? That makes the change go a lot smoother, a lot more effectively as well too. Also, so yeah, that's some excellent advice. I love the idea of having the internal champion, and then folks being able to kind of see and understand the process as well too, because you said as well too, like you could misinterpret kind of what's happening in the beginning of the system itself as learning. That system is designed to actually do learning itself as well too. So in the beginning, right, the results are not going to be the same as they are once it's had that opportunity to kind of go through that phase. But it's important that the team knows that, right? Because the managing expectations is probably the best way I would describe it as well too. Making sure folks have an idea what to expect. That'll help as well also. So excellent advice for sure. Yeah, I can't agree more.
Yeah, another item that we've actually used for a number of years is we've used a workflow product for probably 10 years, roughly. It's Thomson Reuters product. It's their workflow product in their practice management software. It has worked well for us. We run all projects through it. We can assign tasks, and it flows to your dashboard, your queue. It goes to the queue or the dashboard, the traditional. But again, it seems like we needed to look at something to help us even be more efficient. So we're in the next year, we're going to be upgrading to their cloud product, which is Go File Room, Advanced Flow, and then we've also got Purchase Firm Flow, which is really interesting. It kind of sits on top of the other two, so that it's a flow project. You can actually put notes for the preparer, notes for the assembly, where it should be sent to. It actually has a workflow. It actually has checklists. It connects to it interacts with the research software checkpoint. So it's all integrated, which you don't have to go back and forth between software. The workflow is really nice. It's going to give us a chance to, when we initially set it up, we came up with the tasks within the project. Some of those, it was hard to change in the old version. in the new firm flow, we're going to get a chance to revisit that workflow, see if we can do it any more efficient because we've made some changes. We actually have a workflow committee that meets periodically, especially after busy season, and determines are there things we can do better, or are there things we can do differently. So they're looking at the scanning process right now because we've been using scanning and populate. Not sure again that it's exactly what we want, so we're revisiting that, and there may be a capability to do that with advanced flow and firm flow. So we're revisiting that as over the next year as we integrate this. How can we change our scanning process? Because we scan our documents all up front, so we're paperless as it flows through the office. And until the end, we try to deliver as many as we can through the CO returns, but we still have some individuals that want paper, so it never turns into paper until if it's a return that's sent to a client, it doesn't turn to paper until the very last step. So that's worked well, but up front, we think maybe we can get some efficiencies at the way we scan or the way it populates.
Very nice. Sounds like still some exciting plans to come as well too. And I like the way your firm has been methodical about kind of what's next, focusing on the objective at hand at the moment in terms of like, basically I would describe it as where the bottleneck is now, what we need to address next. You mentioned the cloud conversion project, which I think you're going to get a lot of benefit out of that as well too, which is exciting kind of from a practice management software perspective, kind of a good solid foundation there, something that's more accessible and more modern in terms of the tech stack there as well also. And then the music to my ears as well too about operating paperless as much as possible and still having the ability to convert as necessary if there are clients with, particular needs or desires and things like that. But while it's being majorly managed, internally, and you guys are doing what you need to do with it, keep it as electronic as possible, keep it as flexible, make sure that the efficiency is there as well too. I also like the idea of the having the committee that evaluates at the end of each busy season, where are there areas of opportunity for us to improve workflow efficiencies, kind of going back and evaluating what the past season has looked like. That's really a great idea as well, too, because I'm sure every year there's always new opportunities, right? So as you're making progress, as you're instituting a number of these changes, there's more that you want to focus on, obviously, just like you mentioned in your previous response. So it's exciting. We'll have to have you back to talk more about the future plans that you have set at the moment. But it sounds like things are going well thus far. You're getting a decent ROI out of the process, which is always encouraging.
It is. Well, I'd be excited to come back because we continually evaluate what's next. I like to. We talk about standard procedures, standard operating procedures. I always like to know what are the next procedures. That's what I tell my team. It's standard operating procedures are great, but you can't stay lax. You can't stay in time. You have to change. So I'm always pushing for what are next procedures.
Super interesting. Yep. Standard changes, right? The standard evolves. So what's standard now is probably not going to be standard tomorrow. What's standard today won't be standard tomorrow. Super interesting. Jeff, thank you so much for being here and sharing your experience with your firm. Very encouraged by all the progress that you've made. It's inspirational for other folks to hear as well, too, that, perhaps a step or two behind you guys, but have aspirations kind of get their firm there as well also. So the examples are always super helpful. I got a couple questions for you before I let you go. The first is there any advice or resources in particular? I know we mentioned a bunch in the show already, but are there any resources in particular you would point folks at, other managing partners or partners at firms that are looking to kind of take more of a progressive approach or look for opportunities to improve workflow and efficiency, have a healthier relationship with technology at their firm, anything like that you might recommend for folks up to and including just general advice?
Sure. One item that I think is very helpful. Our firm is a member of the medium-sized MAP group firms, management accounting practice with the AICPA, and there's like 25 groups in it, and we share information. So some of this it's been great to find what other firms are doing, and if you're trying to evaluate a project, software or something, they maybe have used it, and they can, we've gotten tips from other firms. So, and this group has a firm administrator group and an audit group and a tax group, so we can really drill down. So, I found being in one of those or an association has been very helpful to just talk to similar size firms, what they're doing. And you don't want to necessarily copy them, but you can share ideas, which, again, some firms have actually implemented or tried to implement some of the software we looked at, and we got tips whether we should do it or not do it. So that was very helpful in the process. I think also internally, as I mentioned before, I think getting your whole team involved early on as much as possible and explaining why. I think what we always find is we explain why we have to do the change, why it's necessary. I think that is very, very important. Don't just one day throw it at them. And so that's why we tend to integrate people on the team as we make these changes. They're involved in the process, 3 or 4 people. They can look at it. Plus, if one of them is a champion, they can help drive it to the other members of the firm and not just coming from the partner level.
Excellent advice. Thank you, Jeff. For certain, the associations in the AICPA, in terms of learning from other firms at or around your size, it's always great to get feedback in terms of what type of experience folks have had with any tools or resources you're thinking about. Maybe there's something you haven't considered that folks have had a good experience with that can really cut down the time and help you figure out what strategy is going to make the most sense for delivering the highest chances of success for your firm whenever you're talking about new projects. And then working with your team internally, of course, as always as well, too, in terms of the different strategies that you've recommended. Obviously, they've had a positive effect on the projects that you've been working on. So working well for you. And I would encourage other firms to take a closer look at those as well. Also, thank you for sharing those suggestions. And then the last question I have for you is, who should reach out to you and how can they get in touch?
I'd be happy to talk to any partner, managing partner, or manager, somebody at a firm administrator who may have questions on software conversion, the products that we've used, or maybe you're looking at other products that maybe we've looked at and that they didn't work for us. We didn't think they provided value for us. Be happy to share that information. I think, again, sharing with other firms, you don't stay inside one box. You're not self-contained. I think that's extremely valuable. I'd be happy to receive an email. My email is jbleacher@rbfco.com. Again, jbleacher@rbfco.com. We have a website, www.rbfco.com. You might want to I kind of messed that up there. I'd be happy, you can reach out to us through the website. I'd be happy to have any conversations about software. We're also always looking for acquisitions. So be happy to talk about that with anybody as well.
Fantastic. And thank you for sharing, Jeff. We'll link to the contact information, the URL to the firm, any of that information that you shared as well, too. So for any of our listeners who tuned into this episode, feel free to check out the show notes to gain access to any of the tools, resources, and contact information that Jeff's provided. And Jeff, I can't thank you enough for being here and sharing your experience and knowledge with myself and our audience. It's very valuable.
Thank you, Sean. It's been my pleasure. I think sharing information is a great way to learn.
Agreed. Couldn't have said it better myself. Thanks for listening to this episode of Accounting Automation. I hope you found it valuable. I help accounting firms scale their profit exponentially without needing to hire any additional accountants. So if your firm is in growth mode and can't keep up, I'd love to talk to you more about how I can empower your firm to do more with less through automation and technology. To learn more, visit my website, nextstep.io, or email me, Sean@nextstep.io. That's Sean, SEAN, @nextstep, NXTSTEP.io.